Hello and welcome to a bit of cricket talks ahead of the fifth and final test match between India and England, which is scheduled to start from today at Old Trafford, Manchester. And let's see what questions Team India got before the start of the toss. The first question is about the fitness levels of Cheteshwar Pujara and Rohit Sharma. There were a few fitness issues regarding Pujara's ankle, and Rohit Sharma did not take field on the final day of the last test. And Indian fans hope that both the batsmen are in good shape to take the field this morning when the play starts. There's been a few questions raised earlier from some sectors of the fans about replacing Pujara due to a case with his strike rates. To those of us who doubt Pujara's capabilities, we can only tell them to look into his contributions abroad, especially when the team was in trouble in the recent past. Here in the series in England and also in that epic series of last Australian summer. He had his telling contributions in most of the Indian victories abroad, be it for his time spent at the crease, if not always for the runs scored. Watching closely, one would be able to understand the value of this very special old style test player. He probably have not impressed an average cricket fan for the shots he plays, but certainly he has had some memorable contributions to his name. Just to understand the value of a player like Pujara, one just have to ask Joe Root, the English captain, to tell us how important is the presence of a batsman of the caliber of Pujara in a test side. The other question for India is whether they would want to include Rahane for this final test. His form for the time being is not up to the expectations, but he is the one player who gave his vital contributions when India won the second test. It was his partnership of 100 runs with Pujara which changed the complexion of that test match, which later enabled Shami and Bumrah to swing their bats freely instead of adopting a defensive strategy, giving India a runaway victory of 151 runs. Form is temporary, but class is permanent. So it would be a good idea to give him one more chance for the benefit of the whole team. So the general opinion is that Kohli shouldn't replace him for the final test. Looking at the history, the reason why India could not win many matches overseas regularly is because India never had an all-round bowling attack that could win matches on all kinds of surfaces. So we always relied on tailor-made pitches that suited our type of bowlers back home to win the matches. Those two wickets which Bumrah took in the last test has eliminated the pitch factor completely out of the equations. It was vintage reverse swinging Yorkers that once Waqar Younis and Wasim Akram used to bowl. It is too early and it is not proper to compare him to any of those greats. However, he is now the fastest Indian pace bowler to reach 100 test wickets ahead of the great Kapil Dev himself. He was able to regularly reverse the ball that even an informed Joe Root found it difficult to dig it out of danger. Not only Bumrah, even Shardul Thakur produced some exceptional deliveries. The breakthroughs he brought were actually the turning point on the last day. Having talked about Thakur, let's see the million-dollar question in front of Indian team management and think tanks. Whether we should have actually played Ashwin in the last test, or is he going to be included in the final test starting today? There were a few fans back home and surprisingly a section of English commentators as well were crying for Ashwin's inclusion in the team from the beginning of the series. All I can think of is that India did not fall for that trap this time. I think we have learned it the hard way from the experience of the World Test Championship finals. It was an age-old topic of discussion whether India should play four fast bowlers in England or not, and it is now clear for everyone about the right bowling combination for India under English conditions. In the hindsight, for curiosity's sake, let's see if Ashwin had played, who would have not played? The obvious answer is Shardul Thakur, who eventually made all the difference with the bat and the ball as well. I found it quite funny when I heard some commentators still mourning for Ashwin's omission even after Shardul Thakur's performance on day 4 afternoon. Cricket is all about mind games. Virat Kohli's tactics on the field has not been so great since the beginning of the series, but here in the last day of the fourth test, he had a different approach and that has given some rich dividends for bowlers like Umesh Yadav and Jadeja. The bowling changes made were also very good. Overall, on and off the field, he manages the team very well. And captaincy is just not within the boundary ropes of the field alone, and that is probably helping Team India these days. The other question which is not known is whether Shami is coming back from injury or not. If Shami comes back, then it will be a difficult task for Kohli to choose between Umesh Yadav and Siraj. Most likely, Siraj will be the one to sit out. One last thing to add is about a reported case of COVID, that one of the members of the India support staff was tested positive for COVID-19, and probably the fifth and final test could be a non-starter. However, the prospects for the starters brightened up as the rest of the squad was tested negative and cleared later in the afternoon yesterday. Weather forecast is also not very good for Friday, but it is expected to clear the skies most likely. Either way, the task for India is not to kill their momentum, as the idea is to elevate this team to the next level of an invincible class of the likes of the West Indies of late 80s or the Australians of late 90s or early millennium. Now, after this series, their final frontier is to beat New Zealand in New Zealand to step into an invincible class of their own. Let's hope for the best, and the positive out of this series tells us that there are a lot of reasons for an average Indian fan to be hopeful. Thank you for listening, and wait for more updates from this channel.